Workplace stories. Here we go. I worked at a slaughterhouse for a little while. They killed steers there but got pork shipped in. The hams came in a gigantic cardboard vat, probably 5 feet wide and 4 feet deep. They were heavily waxed on the inside to make them waterproof and had steel banding running around the outside, kinned off like an old keg or barrel. Once we fished out most of the hams and trimmed him, there was always a couple feet of blood at the bottom. As the new guy, it was my job to dangle over the edge with a meat hook in one hand, fishing for the remaining hams and scraps. Usually it was about an hour in shoulder-deep blood with your face next to the surface. Dancing bear. I was a waiter at a kids' restaurant, which had a bear as its mascot. The new guy had to be the bear on the first day, which meant putting on a massive bear costume over our waiter's uniform, including a huge fur head that you could barely see out of. The chick that runs everywhere inside an office building for exercise. Every single day he comes in and spews some BS. He just invested another $175,000 in some property. He just had a genius moment on the way into work and will now be able to solve the energy crisis. He just met some famous smart person like Elon Musk, who said he was the smartest person he ever met. This isn't occasionally, this is all the time, literally every single day. You can't even talk with this guy, it's so irritating. He follows me everywhere and you try to have some normal conversation and he just spews more BS. I tried talking with him once and said, well, my car has this thing going on with it, I may need to take it to the shop. He replies with, oh, that reminds me, my boyfriend is having the Lamborghini dealer come over tonight. HES having a midlife crisis, but work just gave him another $2 million bonus because HES such an amazing architect. Door-to-door solar panel salesman for a corrupt home energy company. Nothing better than knocking on someone's front door right in the middle of a Patriots game. Reply, $1 a door-to-door for home renovations, windows, doors, siding, etc. right after the 2008 in-market crash. I can't tell you how many people told me they weren't going to be able to make the next mortgage payment, let alone spend $20,000 on new windows. Soul-crushing. Knew someone that worked there for a while and was managing the women's underwear department. It wasn't unusual for people to ask for help in figuring out proper sizing, but what was unusual was that one older woman decided that the best way to achieve it was to not wear a bra at all and just take her shirt off on the sales floor to see if they knew what size she was for maximum efficiency. Worked for UMG straight out of high school processing CD orders. It was still a thing back then. I was 17, the only guy in the office working with nothing but 40-plus-year-old women. Sweet Jesus, the raunchiest conversations that led me to discover the definition of TMI. The work was fine, just data entry, and they had a massive backlog when I arrived. In the first week I cleared it all out and no one in the office had anything to do, including myself. I couldn't browse the web. I brought a book into the office and was reading it, got yelled at by my supervisor for it. I explained that I had nothing to do and sitting around staring at nothing for 8 hours a day was torture. What about our backlog? It's gone. That can't be true. Well, go check for yourself. Comes back, quote, well, okay, if you have nothing to do, come talk to me. After a week of coming to her every hour on the hour asking for something to do and her saying she had nothing, she yelled at me again for bugging her. They eventually fired me for refusing to come in 10 minutes prior to my scheduled time, the unpaid, and logging into the phones. There was nothing going on and I sure as crap was not going to sit around doing nothing for one more minute, then I had to, much less unpaid. Close second was many years later I was brought in to package software for a company that had bought another company. Get it up to their standards, make sure it installed silently, etc. They didn't have a place for me to sit, so they put me in an unheated warehouse. In the winter, with massive bay doors that opened up 4 to 6 times a day for deliveries. After working there for a month, I still didn't even have a computer to work on. After a month, I got a computer, but there was nothing for me to do still. It took me a week to track down my manager after this point, and he said that they wouldn't have work for me for a few more months. Aren't you lucky? You get to do nothing and collect a paycheck, he said to me. Yeah, real lucky. Then they brought on another guy for some reason to do the same job. We were both incredibly confused, to say the least. After another month and having read about 24 books, I just stopped showing up. Submitted my time and checked my email every day to see if there was any work to do, as well as and weekly emails asking if there are any tasks coming my way soon to my manager. Oh man, let me tell you about H. Where to begin. 1. It's holiday party time and the ice is all frozen into one big chunk. Not to worry though, H is on it. Here's a rusty hammer borrowed from one of the foresters. Don't worry about using a dirty hammer to break up something you're about to put in your drink. A little iron oxide in your soda is good for the constitution, am I right? 2. What's that you say? A cake for someone's retirement. How nice. H will cut himself a nice big slice, then lick the frosting off the knife before putting it back with the cake. Yes, we all saw you do that, and yes, we're going to wash the knife. 3. Heck yes, another holiday party. What is this item on the buffet? Will H like it? Better stick his fork in that tab a piece to try while standing in line. 4.0 H has a cold. Better go gurgle some water in the kitchen sink, then spit it back out. Oops, forgot to take the sponge everyone uses to clean their dishes out of the sink first. Oh well. My boss's wife has been given a position of authority over my department despite having no experience or expertise in the area. But the worst part is, she is an older lady and by all accounts seems to be suffering from dementia, Alzheimer's. Every single email you send her or email chain she's included on, she will respond without having any understanding of what was written to her. So then you have to spend the time explaining the whole content of the chain or email to her. We have to attend meetings with her where she will spend a lot of time rambling about things that have nothing to do with our work. We have to remind her or re-explain things we talked about at the last meeting that are relevant because she doesn't remember or understand. Then the whole thing happens all over again in the next interaction with her, like it's Groundhog Day for her. Work with a woman. Pete's having fun yet almost every hour of the shift. At the counter is an aspiring producer trying to convince the salesman to teach him to use the software since he can't refund it now that it's registered to his ILOK key. In the DJ room, there's one kid who thinks he's deadmau5 by literally just playing a deadmau5 CD. There's another kid who's asking for a record needle and demo vinyl so he can try scratching. Record needles are about $60 to $120 each, so no. None of them have any idea what a DJ mixer is. In the pro audio area, there's an old guy who did some roadie work in the 80s and he's arguing with a salesman over the price being higher than what it was 35 years ago. There's another customer looking to buy sound reinforcement for his church, but he's haggling over getting a better price for Jesus despite the fact that he already won't be paying tax on the items. At the counter is a man angry that the microphone he bought doesn't work without a cable or a speaker to plug it into. This actually happened. Then there's the people buying sheet music and hardware for their orchestral instruments. S constantly eats throughout the day, but to do this he must take several trips to the canteen to acquire food. But on the way to the canteen it starts with at least a 20-minute cigarette break. Complains heavily if anyone asks him to do anything as he is always too busy. We have flexi time at work, so he gets in early, and on the odd time I have turned up early the office lights are always off. Apparently prefers working in the dark. Becomes deeply offended at any change in the office, and the temperature must be kept cold as he can't work if it's too warm. Can't stand the coffee addicts in the office as they need caffeine but drinks several bottles of Coca-Cola every day. I have been in the office now for nearly 2 years, still yet to work out what he actually does. He smells, he's sweaty, and when he sneezes he wipes his nose with his hand and cleans it off on the desk. Lifeguard. It was hours upon hours of boredom intermingled with seconds of sheer terror. Reply. Glorified cleaners. Spent most of my time cleaning changing rooms and toilets with a bit of time on poolside doing J**all. In 4 years there was one rescue when I was on shift, and I was mopping the floor in reception. I was a customer at Walmart during Black Friday and went to get a 3DS, and the employee looked so scared when he told me the Black Friday sale didn't apply anymore. Our most hated person is a troll who survives off cigarettes, Diet Pepsi and the souls she drains, mine included. Some of her greatest hits, telling me I'm not getting any younger, therefore my babies would be retarded, her word, not mine. Telling a delightful tale of how she once snuck in pork into a Muslim's diet. Going on about her husband's pension and how she doesn't have to work, she just works for the fun of it. Yeah, she bum smokes and bus fare off people half her age. She lives to get anyone into trouble, yet she's incompetent herself, and when she's called on it, she says to her is human. Every week she threatens to quit, but nowhere would have her. Far and away the most hated person in my carpentry shop is the deaf guy. I've only been working there a year and everyone thinks he is the most vindictive, hateful, selfish, paranoid butthole to walk the earth. He's easily the hardest worker there. I can tell you with confidence that he has generated the most money for the company of anyone there. He absolutely owns his portion of the shop. He has it down like clockwork and doesn't waste a second. All that being said, he throws an absolute rabid fit whenever anything out of routine happens, and he won't look anyone in the eye, and he calls everyone lazy buttholes. After a month of working there, I started to learn ESL, American Sign Language. I learned a few things at home and would say anything that I could to him. Happy Monday, how are you, etc. I learned how to ask about words, how to spell things, how to sign numbers. Pretty soon he's teaching me a word a day, then it speeds up to 3 to 5 words a day. Fast forward a year and we talk constantly. What I learned is that he gets mad because he's been passed up for promotions because he's deaf. People don't tell him when overtime is available, which he wants. He sees people coming in late and still taking breaks, and he never breaks those rules. He gets mad that no one ever tells him about new machines being bought or new jobs coming in or the gossip. I unknowingly became his liaison. He stopped fighting with people. He's able to get all of the jokes we tell at lunch because I can translate. He can joke back through me. Other people are learning sign language as time goes on too. What I don't get is why I never gave him the benefit of the doubt. It would suck to be deaf and never know what was going on. Some people have worked with him for 15 plus years and no one ever learned any ASL. He thanked me recently for being a good friend. Not my story, but a friend who worked at the salon at one of the super Walmarts. She went to use the bathroom in the middle of her shift, and when she finished she saw there wasn't any toilet paper left on the bottom roll. But it was one of those ones that you can push on an upper roll to have it drop down and start using that. So she reaches up to push the new roll down when her fingers go into something moist and sticky. Took her hand out to see her fingertips covered in poop. Someone had taken a dump, probably fished it out of the toilet, then crammed it inside the toilet paper dispenser. I was a furnace helper in steel factory. We made bumper mounts and hinges for trucks, hoods and other heavy steel parts. I unloaded red-hot parts from the furnace with a pair of tongs I used to catch fire 2 or 3 times a day. I hated that. Reply, quote, I used to catch fire 2 or 3 times a day. I hated that. This part got to me. You say it like it's commonplace to catch fire at your job. Then had to further point out that you didn't like catching on fire.